Since I was a kid, I had a very bad habit of chewing on my pencil. And now that I am 24 years old, I still have that habit. One day, as I was writing a script, by obviously chewing on my pencil, my ADHD brain shifted its attention to the pencil, and a tsunami of questions hit me while just looking at it. Like, when was it invented? How does it work? Why we call it a lead when it's clearly not a lead? This video will be going through all this and more. But first, let's jump into the time machine and set the dial to the 16th century and our destination, England.
Morning, God!
One day, the locals stumbled upon what they thought was a large deposit of black lead, which later turned out to be graphite. I mean, to be fair, it does look like lead if you squint hard enough. That's why we still call it lead, even though it's not. They noticed that this new material left marks on their hands by just holding them. Naturally, their first thought was to do graffiti on their sleeves. But graphite is soft and very brittle in nature, just like my self-confidence, and needed some kind of encasement so that it could be holdable. Is that a word? So they started to wrap the graphite using a string or small pieces of sheepskin, creating what we call the first pencils. Although it wasn't long enough that everything got shut down due to the England Navy. It turns out graphite was perfect for making cannonballs than anything else, resulting in closing the mine for common people. And suddenly, graphite became a hot commodity and attracted a lot of thieves trying to smuggle the graphite to the rest of Europe, creating what we call a black market. Meanwhile, over in Europe, pencil was an instant hit, and it wasn't long enough that someone decided to ditch the strings and was like, let's just use wood instead. The oldest surviving pencil, dating back to the 17th century, belonged to a German carpenter. It doesn't look like the pencil that we use today, but the way it works is very much the same. Almost a century later, England already started exporting their pencils, but at ridiculous prices. Meanwhile, a guy named
Stettler,
living in Nuremberg, saw an opportunity in pencil production and founded a company named after him. But there was a big hurdle. Export of solid lumps of graphite was still banned by England. So he started using the crushed graphite mixed with wax, sulfur and antimony mixture and later encased with a wooden holder to create a pencil. Sure, they were not as good as pure graphite pencils, but they were way cheaper. There was another person who was working on creating a pencil without needing the help of England graphite. France, in the mid-18th century, was not in a good situation. It was in a political and economic turmoil following the French Revolution and the Napoleon Wars, and found itself cut off from the supply of British graphite. Seeking a solution,
Nicolas Jacques Conté,
an officer in Napoleon army and a talented engineer, was asked to create a pencil that did not rely on foreign imports. And he started experimenting with various compositions and processes. After several days of research, Nicolas had the idea of mixing powdered graphite with clay, shaping it into rods and sandwiching it between wooden halves, and
Voila!
the modern pencil was born. Not only was it as good as pure graphite, but was much easier to create. I mean, this design is still the basis for most of the wooden pencils produced today. Furthermore, Nicolas' method gave us the H and B grading system that we know today. H pencils have more clay, leaving a lighter mark. So, higher the number preceding the H, lighter the mark. B pencils, on the other hand, have more graphite, making them darker. And similar to the H series, higher the value, darker the mark. Whereas HB and F pencils sits in between the H and B series. HB pencils are the ones that we use in our daily life for writing. This was a significant improvement, offering artists and writers more control over their work. Fast forward to the 19th century. Pencil manufacturers in US wanted their product to stand out, to emphasize their deluxeness. One of the companies to do so was the L&C Hardmat Company. They decided to paint their pencils with a yellow color and named their pencils after the famous Kohinoor diamond. But why yellow? Well, in China at the time, yellow represented royalty and a symbol of respectability. And it worked. Their sales skyrocketed. And looking at their success, almost all the pencil manufacturers in the US started painting their pencils yellow. And that's why the yellow pencil is now an iconic Hollywood staple, popping up in movies, ads, and your third grade classroom. I have covered everything that I wanted to, except for one. How does a pencil work? It turns out the graphite structure is like this, flat groups of carbon atoms that are stacked in layers. The layers slide against each other and allow it to slide off the pencil point and onto the paper. And this is how it leaves a mark on the surface. And when you erase, the graphite sticks to the rubber better than the paper, forming those black eraser bits that we brush off. And that's the story of the pencil. That's all from my side. Thank you for watching the video. Bye. Also,
So please subscribe, whatever.